As a mum of 3 amazing daughters, I feel incredibly blessed. Watching them develop and have their own perspectives on tech, society, and the future of work has been incredibly inspiring. A year ago, we recorded a conversation about AI communications and the future of life. So much has happened since then, and I thought it would be fascinating to bring them back into the studio and see how their thinking has evolved. Let's get started. Welcome to yet another episode of the Vanessa Eriksson podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm here to bring you meaningful conversations with leaders and influencers on data, AI, innovation, and leadership. Welcome, girls. It's so nice to have you back in the studio again. And I love that you're always helping me with these. You know, it's not your favorite thing to be in the studio and on my podcast. So thank you. Ems, let's start with you. Since we last spoke, you've finished your studies in political science, and now you're working with government agencies and in the election process here in Sweden. From that perspective, what have you learned about how democracy actually works behind the scenes?
I'd say that what I have learned about how democracy works behind the scenes hasn't necessarily changed that much since I studied. I have, however, seen how much actually goes into it. All the processes sort of remain the same, but you get a completely different perspective and understanding of democracy when you actually work with it. There is so many more people and there's so many more actors involved in democracy, upholding it and securing it for the people.
In many countries, we see growing discussions about trust in institutions. From what you've seen working with the election process, what helps build that trust in democracy?
Specifically for Sweden, I think that for very many years we've had the fortune of enjoying a very robust election system and a very stable democracy. And I'd say that we have benefited a lot from that stable ground of our democracy. What we have is very deep-rooted traditions in when we go to vote and how we go to vote. A lot of people also stick to the same parties for a very long time, which is also very stable for democracy to have multiple parties to choose from, for instance. When it comes to the actual election process, we have a lot of manual moments, and it's been very much the same routine for very many years, which people have benefited from, I'd say. When it comes to having stable leaders, you would have to have leaders who are transparent and sticks to their principles. And in a lot of cases here in Sweden, we have politicians who do that, who deliver their promises. Mm-hmm. And we have very secure government agencies that also work and aim to deliver what they've promised to the people.
So what I hear you say is that we definitely have that trust built in the Swedish systems, and we have democracy.
Indeed.
That's really nice to hear. But what do you think most people don't realize about the elections and the democratic processes?
What I've understood is that most people kind of see democracy as this invisible sphere that exists on top of a people or a country, when in fact there is so much more that actually happens there. There are so many more people working with it, and there are so many government agencies involved in maintaining and upholding democracy, say in Sweden. And I think that there's a lot more people working with it than we might understand. And I think that some people also perhaps take democracy for granted when there's so many people working to uphold it and maintain it. And
I think, if I may say, I think that a lot of people that you say take for granted, I think I could easily fall into that category of taking it for granted because, yeah, it works as it should.
Yes, a lot of people then take it for granted, but I think that when I've started working with the elections where I am right now, you have another side to it and a deeper appreciation for how democracy works.
It has to be, right? Because then you see everything that goes into making this I mean, making it just work, that people won't come to the elections, because you could also have these people that we talk about a lot, don't just be on your sofa and watching it, go make a difference.
Exactly. That is the elections, that is our possibility to engage with politics and engage with democracy and actually shape the democracy of the country or place where we reside.
Thanks. Leah, since our last conversation, you started an internship at Microsoft and also a mentorship program. Being so close to tech and business strategies, how do you see AI shaping the future of work and innovation?
Exactly. I like this question a lot. I think that for me at work, I'm definitely in an AI bubble. We talk about it all the time. We are developing AI solutions at a really fast pace and always trying to stay ahead, expecting what the customer requirements are going to be and what their needs are going to be. But then at the other side, I'm still a student, I'm still at KDH, and I really, I'm going to write my master's thesis, and that is a research project. And so in terms of innovation and AI and research, I see this field as well. It's developing extremely quickly. And I'm looking forward so much to starting that and learning about how AI can help me there, because I have yet to have a research project with AI. But it's really one of my hopes for the future that AI will help us with innovation and, leading research so that we can discover more things and just learn more as a species about every single thing that we're doing research on.
Nice. But what is your opinion about young professionals? Do you believe they are excited, or do you feel that they are intimidated by how fast AI is evolving? Because it is, right?
It is. I see both perspectives. I like to see the whole picture. For example, at work, we do a lot of work with some startups as well. And I know here in Stockholm, there are a lot of AI startups. And it's always interesting to learn what they are doing and how they're coming up with new kind of business value using AI. But then, of course, there are people who are maybe a bit intimidated or just feel a bit like it's not their thing with AI. And I meet them at school as well.
Can people really feel like that it's not their thing? Because, I mean, AI is getting into every space.
It is getting into every space, in some industries faster than others. So you can kind of make your pick depending on how integrated you want to be and how engaged you want to be at an early stage in your career. And then maybe later on, with the development as well, it's hard to tell where it's going to go. Yeah.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.
Molly, shall we begin with you? It's more than a year since you moved to Umeå to study strategic communication. With AI generating more content than ever, how do you think communication professionals will build trust with audiences in the future?
That's a complicated question, I think, because, the more content that AI generates, the more valuable that trust becomes. But then the question is, as you said, how do you build that trust? And I think a lot more people will care about who is communicating and why, rather than the message. And I think it will be a lot more focus on transparency and consistent values and just being authentic.
Molly, that is a really interesting take on it, because you said it is more about who is communicating. Does that mean then it would be only people who have somehow built their integrity and credibility in the communication space?
Yeah, the people who communicate it and also how they go about it. Mm-hmm. So as I said, more about transparency and authenticity, rather than just the message, what it is they're communicating. And also, AI, as we know it, is usually generates just perfectly written content, posts, press releases. So I think it might also shift a bit from being too polished in a way, Because if it's a perfectly written message, then that message becomes kind of meaningless.
Very interesting. Because, well, some of us spent a lot of time in getting that polished for your audiences. So that's a shame then. For me, I think what I take from here is the moral is go with your true, what it is that you want to communicate, and focus less on it being super polished.
Yeah, and I think that's also how you're going to stand out.
Yeah, got it. But do you think AI will help communicators, or will it make their job harder?
I think it's going to make their jobs easier, but I still think it's going to change their jobs a lot.
How?
Because, I mean, AI creates content super fast, generates ideas super fast, but it does that for anyone. So I think then the value kind of shifts from just producing content, like just for the sake of it, to like thinking and strategy behind it. I think an important skill of a communicator will be thinking like critically and strategy, and knowing who and how to communicate, and like thinking about the credibility behind it.
Emily, is it something that worries you, or is it something that excites you about both AI and about tech? I'm thinking more about the whole election process. Because a few years ago we heard so much in the news about being rigged, Any thoughts that you want to share with us?
Well, we see technology and AI developing at speeds which legislation necessarily can't keep up with, jurisdiction can't keep up with.
Yeah.
And then we have cases of vast amounts of content spreading disinformation about elections, about people, and that damages the credibility of politicians and, again, our election system and even the fundamentals of democracy. So I, unfortunately, don't see this so...
Positively?
No, not so positively at all. I see consequences and I see risks with the development of AI and certain technologies.
The question then should be, how can legislation keep up? Because we have the AI EU Act today. So do I hear you say that we need to step up and, keep up with AI, with the evolution that's happening? Because that would be a way of helping society.
That is true. I don't really remember where I got this number from. I think that AI is developing at a speed of like 20 times that of legislation. I don't think that legislation is catching up anytime soon. No. And again, I don't work with law. So what I think is rather that instead of protecting AI and its development, I think rather we should limit it. And I think perhaps there should be greater information spread about how you can protect yourself as an individual, as a person who takes in content and advertisement and political messages, and you just have to keep yourself safe in those situations. I think, unfortunately, it becomes up to the individual, with support of certain government agencies, to keep yourself aware and be source critical of what you take in, rather than putting too much legislation on making sure that AI can develop. I think it would be rather that you would try to limit it and keep people informed about what it can do to you.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think my personal reflection is that we need to have better guardrails in place.
Definitely.
Yeah. Molly, what about you? Any thoughts on, I'm guessing as a communicator then, that it more excites you and the possibilities of what it can do?
What excites me is definitely the possibilities.
Yeah.
They seem almost endless, but I think there's a lot more things that frighten me, or not frighten, but it's somehow a bit disappointing sometimes. I'm thinking about like art and music and books, because I would say I'm quite a creative person and I like to listen to music and read books, and there's just so much more content that you find that, and maybe it's something you really like, and then it turns out that it's generated by AI, and I think that just kind of ruins the whole thing, especially when it has to do something, especially when it's about something creative like music or books, because I think the whole point of it is that it's human.
Or created by humans.
Created by humans. So that kind of, for me at least, it kind of takes away the whole point.
Yeah. Leah, what would be your take on that? Is it a worrying future with AI, or is it, an exciting future ahead, or maybe both?
Yes. I think what I would like to say is it's both.
Yeah.
But I totally validate and I agree with both the points that my sisters have made. Disinformation and the risks with AI in an election, and like such a big topic as democracy and a democratic process. And then also with the human ingenuity and losing kind of the human touch in art. And I think just adding to those two very strong points, when it comes to learning new topics, studying, using AI as like the quick way out, like using AI to not really cheat, but to fast track yourself in a way that then later on in life doesn't benefit you. I think that's a bit worrying, and I think that the opportunities and chances to do those things are really high right now. I know that
the risks are also.
The risks are high. I know that the educational sector and educational institutions are not, just as the municipalities and government authorities, they're not really there yet where they can work as fast as AI is developing. So I think you have to really respect kind of whatever you are doing enough to want to put yourself into your craft or put yourself into your field and learn for your own benefit rather than taking the fast way out.
Yeah, because it will catch up with you at some point.
I mean, that's
Yes.
how I believe that it will go.
Yeah. But when you talk with your friends about the future, do you think your generation is optimistic or uncertain?
So I'll carry on. I believe that most of the people I speak to are quite optimistic. I think that there is a lot yet to come, and I think that it's quite fun. If you don't take everything too seriously, then, you could use AI as like a more senior advisor or a buddy, and like kind of role play, or if you need to practice for a podcast or for an interview, like you can practice responses, you can speak to AI. I think that if you see the fun things and if you see the possibilities
There's lots more
for
to
your
explore.
own development as well, there is so much more to explore. And if we talk about work specifically, then maybe mundane repetitive tasks. I mean, I hope that no one has to sit with their eyes and look at 2 Excel columns and compare them and create a new one. Like, I really believe that AI has huge benefits for all kinds of companies and organizations when it comes to those kind of tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think, Molly?
I do totally agree with what you say, and I think there's a lot of possibilities and it's very fun to explore. But I mean, also I'm not where you are yet. You're also in university, but I think the people that I talk with at university as students, we're all very thankful and grateful that AI as a tool exists, because it makes it a whole lot easier for all of us. But at the same time, it's like, okay, jokes aside, we're going to be unemployed when we graduate.
Unemployed?
Yeah.
Is that the worry?
I think it is for a lot of people, yeah. Especially as communicators, it feels like that is a field that's going to kind of die out or be taken over by AI somehow.
I personally do not believe that, Molly, because I think you will always, for strategy and communications, you will always need to have the human in there with, as you talked about also, who is communicating and, getting the feelings across.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yes. So I hope that you can also cheer up your friends. And let's, if we let's take another dive into what you just said, because I think that is so interesting. Jobs, because just now I can imagine that there is a fear among the youngsters because jobs are hard to find. But also, that anybody 50 and above is also looking for jobs. There's a huge there's a huge group in that age group that is unemployed. And yes, I do not believe at this point AI is replacing people, but I think that companies, organizations are in this transition phase where, what could AI do? They have to reduce the cost. And the easiest way is, we let go of people and we bring down the cost because that looks good on paper. But I think that the jobs will come back. It will be new jobs. So I think you should keep that bright, optimistic view and cheer your friends up as well. And you can take that. Mom said so.
I will let them know.
Thank you. Emily, do you talk to your friends about this as well?
I think it's a healthy dose of both. I'm friends with a lot of creatives, people who work with art, people who write journalism. And I think that for some people, it is very scary to think that a lot of, art projects might perhaps be taken over by, or graphic projects might be taken over by AI. And a lot of text can be written by AI, which, as Molly was in on, kind of scares people and threatens with unemployment. At the same time, I also have people and coworkers who are afraid of the disinformation aspects of AI and creating so much content that can't be verified, that isn't transparent, and shows an altered view of reality to specifically angle something, a message, in a wrong and malicious manner. I also have people who are very excited about what AI can give. How, as Leah was also in on, maybe making certain like everyday mundane tasks easier, creating lists, shopping lists, anything. And I know that some people like to discuss things of their day with AIs.
Over the past year, what's the one thing you've learned at university or in life that completely changed the way you see the world? That's a big question. Ems, do you want to go first?
Well, after I graduated last year, I found a job for the municipality where we live, and I also moved out. And those were very important milestones for me personally. So I don't think...
Yeah, we miss you.
I'm glad to hear it. It hasn't necessarily like completely altered my worldview, but I feel steadier. I have a proper grown-up job, and I live with my partner, and I feel like so many more things have opened up for me since then. I have to be in charge of my own expenses, and I have to decide when I do certain things or go shopping and clean my apartment. And it is a certain freedom that I didn't expect to feel so good.
I'm really glad. That makes me so happy. Molly, what about you? What has changed in the way you see the world? Has anything happened in the past year?
Well, it has nothing really to do with AI, but one thing that I realized was when I moved out and started over in a brand new city that I've never been to before and not known anyone in. I think I realized how much you grow when you're a bit outside your comfort zone, because I experienced it firsthand, I'd say. And
that is really wonderful to hear, Molly.
Yeah, and just knowing that everything will always work out, because and I have so many cases in mind, examples, where I thought I was, gonna die, but it always works out. And
It
I
always
realized
works
that.
out.
Yeah.
I love that. It always works out.
And
And
also,
sometimes, I'm sorry,
yeah,
sometimes I need to remember that myself. As you get old, it doesn't stop just from moving out that feeling of it'll be all right, because sometimes
Exactly.
it just feels so overwhelming, even as a mum.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. Go on.
yeah, and I'd also say just being better at trusting my own judgment. And if you're in a situation that doesn't feel good, if something doesn't align with you, then it's okay to take that step and to change something.
Oh my gosh, that's my grown-up girl, people. Thank you, Molly. Leah, what about you?
So I haven't had any life-altering situations this past year. But I think I'm getting there step by step and day by day.
Yeah.
And with my work, it's like figuring out what I want to do, maybe for the rest of my life, maybe not for the rest, but what I want to do in my next step. Also just getting there with my university degree. Soon gonna write my master thesis and deciding what I want to write about. And yeah, other than that, just taking care of myself, taking care of the people around me, taking care of my dog. It's a busy life.
It is indeed. But if you had to give one piece of advice to younger girls who are curious about tech, or just the future, what would that be?
One piece of advice, I feel something that I follow, and that's why I feel comfortable sharing, is to say yes to the challenges and to the opportunities that come your way. Sometimes it could be a job, sometimes it could be maybe a summer program or some other kind of opportunity, maybe a trip. Just say yes, because
or like girls at tech asking you to be an ambassador.
Yeah, like girls at tech asking me to be an ambassador. No, but really just to put yourself out there, to say yes to opportunities, try to not limit yourself and not to limit your imagination.
Wonderful. Thank you. Molly, what advice would you give?
I would say just to stay curious and open-minded. I think it's very important. And also to not, especially in tech, to never underestimate your own perspective or opinion or thoughts. Wonderful. Because it's innovation and innovative minds that shape the world, kind of. So we will always need those different unique voices, perspectives and thoughts in that field and to shape the world, to make it different.
I love that. Thank you, Molly. Ems, it was big for you last year. A lot of milestones that you accomplished. If you had to give advice to somebody younger than you, who's also planning to move out or just maybe join the government, what would your advice be to them?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I definitely agree with my sister's points about saying yes to things and staying open-minded and staying curious. And I can also share that for me, where I've ended up today, that was definitely not a straight path. That was a very crooked and twisty-turny line. I was inspired by both my parents, who work in tech, to also try to find an education and a career in tech for myself. And I realized kind of quickly that that was not for me. So my advice would be that you have to dare to try things and then learn more about yourself and figure out the path that you want to take. Because it was a little bit of trial and error for me to end up where I am today. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. I think the journey is always good and should always be good.
Yeah, I can just say, trial and error. I think that's super big, because not feeling stuck wherever you are, that you can get up, because it was the same for me. it was air hostess versus model, and then finally finding my path. So you can move into many, but I think and I think it's right what you said. You know, don't feel stuck. Don't feel like, now I made this decision, I got to sit here. The future is still there. Get up and just go do what makes you happy, like
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
I have one final question, and it's going to be a fun question.
Exciting.
Yeah. So the audience knows, growing up with a mom who talks data and AI all the time, did that inspire you, scare you, or bore you to death?
It was definitely not boring, because I think one of the most beautiful things about people is to see their passion. And it's always been fun and inspiring in many different ways to see how you light up when you talk about the things that mean the most to you.
Like you girls?
Yeah, sure. No, but when you talk about your work, and when you would come home and you're just like, this is what I did today, and it would always be so much fun to learn what you've done.
Thank you.
It was, again, definitely not boring, and it was definitely exciting. And it's one of the things that inspired me to also attempt a career in tech, which I quickly learned was not for me again. But then I am grateful that I had that opportunity to actually try something that I maybe would have not done otherwise if you had not been there to talk so highly about it.
Thank you, Emily. Molly, did my talks inspire you, scare you, or just bore you to death?
I'm not. I think you're not gonna love my answer, but here we go.
I did bore you, didn't I?
You didn't bore me, man. I think I was too young, maybe. I mean, to be inspired. I remember you coming home or when you were working from home, and I would watch you, and the only thing you would do is answer emails and make PowerPoint presentations. And I told myself, my God, I am never getting an office job because it seems so boring. But of course you still inspire me, but I think that's come more recently. And I think it's not so much for the work you do specifically, but rather your curiosity and your passion and your drive. I think that's what inspires me. And honestly, I think when I was young, I was a lot more inspired by your modeling and your air hostess job.
Yeah.
I think that's what excited me the most back then.
Thank you, Molly, for being so honest.
You get brutal honesty whether you like it or not.
Absolutely, and I would have it no other way.
Well, I have chosen a career in STEM so far anyway. We'll see. But being in this family and having the chats that we have at the dinner table, it shapes me a lot. And my opinion is it shapes me in the best way. I think that taking that one step further with Girls at Tech, with all the podcasts, I get to meet so many incredible people, and I get to be in rooms that not a lot of other people get to be in, and so I see how fortunate I am and how privileged I am to be so close to so many amazing people that my mother knows. And so, no, I love it. I'm everything I am is grateful.
Thank you, Leah. That is really sweet, and it warms my heart for everything that you have to share. And, you know, I love this podcast because it's not just because it's my family, but I know you girls, and it's lovely that I get to hear your thoughts and how you are developing as young ladies. I love that. And to all of you out there, thank you for joining us. I hope that this inspired you just as much as it inspired me. I think every talk that I have with my guest inspires me in some way all the time. So thank you for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. We'd love to have your thoughts and feedback, good or bad, always nice to hear. Bye for now.